I love what I do so much. I'm so passionate about it. I had a call 2 o'clock last night. Like I'll take calls any time of the day to help a guy out, on a search, whatever it may be. The proactiveness, the willingness to want to get up. I get up 3, 4 in the morning. I am motivated. I am pumped. I'm ready to go hit the road. So that willingness, that fire in me that I didn't get anything yesterday. Today, I'm going out. I'm going to smash the world and I'm going to try to find someone involved in major criminal activity that typically gets by the 99% of cops that are out there.
111, 110.
You training to be a street cop?
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Street Cop Training Podcast. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Street Cop Training. My name is Dennis Benigno, and we have with us today everybody's favorite Interdiction Academy instructor, the one, the only, the up-and-coming legend, Nick Jackson. By the way, I have to give credit where credit's due. Kenny Williams, OG, Brad Gilmore, OG, Rob Ferrero, OG, all of these guys, OG. Nick is out there doing his thing. His product is a new product. He's got a great course, Interdiction Academy, and he also has a new class that he's coming out with. And before we do that, let me just say two things. Number one, I brought the hat out today. It's the first time I've worn this on the podcast. Number two, I found one of these pens, dude, right? So these pens are, and I get no money from Pilot. Are they Pilot? Let's see. No, Zebra F402s. These were the pens of Dennis Benigno's uniform. They looked good. They never fell out. They had a very fine tip. I actually found one. I was like, I'm going to write my notes today with my F402s. So what's up, man?
What's going on, bro? Thanks for the dedication, bro. I appreciate it, man. Like I said, man, there's a lot of great interdictors out there. So just one of many great fellow interdictors.
Mm-hmm. So,
yes,
dude,
sir.
we
What's
talked
up,
a little
brother?
bit earlier today. You're now doing 75 hard. Tell me about that.
Yeah, man. So just started 75 hard. So great challenge, ready about that personal fitness to get that mindset right, So one of the things that you can't really get into, you can't drink, no cheat meals, have to have a dietary plan, whatever it could be. There's no specifics on a dietary program. And you can even get into, whatever you want to count the carbs, micro carbs, whatever you want to do, all that crap. A gallon of water a day, a book that is mindset based, work on your personal development, 10 pages minimum a day, 2 workouts that got to be indoor. I'm sorry, yeah, one outdoor, 1 indoor, 45 minutes, or you can do 2 45 minutes outdoor. That's the biggest. And, the first couple of days, I think the water was me a little bit hard. My DC accent right there, my water. So like the 2 gallons a day the gallon a day was a little rough, but 18 days in right now, strong, ready to finish out, man. But I might even keep it going. I'm thinking about just keep going to the end of the year. So that's where I'm at with it right now.
Well, that's the point of the 75 hard thing, is to create a lifestyle so you can get used to it and never depart from it.
Yes.
Your boy was getting a little bit, I don't know. I was putting a little bit of a belly on and I recognized it. And so this is day 4, no carbs, or let me say this, very little carbs, almost no sugars.
Good.
And, listen, dude, it's just mind over matter, right? When you make that
it is. It really is. It really is.
That's all it is. So when these cravings come, I mean, who's stronger, you or the cravings? I said that to myself last night. I was like, man, and I got kids, dude. They're eating friggin' Oreos and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, dude? I'm better than this. I'm not going to succumb to this pizza.
Yeah. And I think the second hardest thing, like being a uniform, federal officer, whether I don't care what your uniform in general, taking calls, doing everything you got to do during the day, and then trying to find time to maintain that balance, drink your gallon of water or, whatever your requirements is for whatever workout you are, and then eat healthy. Like that's hard, and then find that time in the day to go out and do a workout. I got to do 2 a day. So time management is also for one of those factors that's involved into like part of my workout.
No question about it. So let me ask you this.
Yeah, what's up?
A lot of people don't know you created a new class. This is not just about promoting the class. This was Nick Jackson, Dennis Benigno jumping on to just chop it up. A lot of cool stuff in the future that I've revealed to you about Street Cop Training. It's actually a Saturday. We've decided to do a podcast on a Saturday together. But what's this new program you came up with, and why should people take it? You tell me.
Yeah, man. So I'm super excited about this new class. So again, I've always tried to develop stuff like interdiction is my bread and my butter, my passion, right? But one big aspect for those who've been in my class, taking my online or my in-person class, one of the big things I preach is before I even get into the aspect of even asking for consent to search a car or getting any further into just past the actual reason for the reason why I stopped them, I tell everyone you got to focus on that interview. The interview is our bread and butter, right? Because I don't want to waste my time, my partner's time searching cars that, number one, don't need to be searched, right? Because it could just be a generating motor in public, not involved in any criminal activity. I don't want to make a bad impression for law enforcement, and I don't want to be searching cars that I don't want to search. So I always say if the interview is not present, meaning if behavior deception isn't present, I'm kicking those individuals down the road with a warning, and I'm getting back out there looking for criminals, right? So the topic and the title of my class that I came up with is Detecting Behavioral Deception, and it is a class dedicated for all law enforcement, patrol, uniform, detective, whatever it could be. And it's designed that I'm going to use real videos, and I'm going to have, actual interviews that I've done roadside that have led to something, or other calls for service that, I've taken apart, throughout my years in law enforcement. And I'm going to be dissecting those, diving those down, breaking them down. And I'm going to be showing officers in law enforcement across the country how to basically detect behavioral deception and how to identify, and more importantly, how to put this stuff into your report so that when you have to go testify, you kind of know what you're talking about. So you're not just saying up there saying, oh, his carotid artery's popping out of his neck, he's lying, right? It's a little bit more into that, and getting into the limbic brain system and how that stuff works, and cognitive dissonance, and how everything is combined. I'm going to be going really in depth into the behavioral deception portion in my class. And it's going to be strictly deception behavior analysis, open for all law enforcement, whether you're working interdiction or not. Every cop out there can use it.
It's funny when you talked about, I'm not going to take that next step forward of searching somebody's car if everything else is not there. I would probably argue that second to vehicle selection, that is the hardest thing for younger, eager police officers to try to
Yes.
discern. And, I think one way, unfortunately, there's only a few ways you can learn that, and that is through training. I always tell people, your best bet is to grab 50-yard line seats
Yeah.
at the Super Bowl, first row off the field, because that's where you can see how the game's played, in depth the most. What do I mean
Yeah.
by that? If there's a man or a woman that's local to you that you can do a ride along with, or some group of people that are doing this work that you want to do, there's nothing better than going out and experiencing with somebody who's actually experienced. Now, I say that with caution because I'm sure Nick doesn't want 65 emails tomorrow on, can I do a ride
Send
along
them.
with you? Vehicle selection is obviously the first most difficult thing that actually I think it's probably one of the biggest hurdles and one of its most simple fixes. So we'll come
Yeah.
back to that. I'm going to write that down. We're going to come back to that, but I wanted to get to my point here of, let's go forward a little bit to once you have the vehicle stopped. Everybody's so unsure if they actually have it. So I think good advice is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, why don't you just wait till you're really sure that you have it? How do you know?
Yeah.
You have to come to class. Now, if you haven't taken training or classes, you'll never know if you're really sure. You're merely guessing and speculating that this could be something. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. One variable that I can give everybody as a gift here for when you're learning how to do police work in this style is be extra friendly, overly nice, super polite, and know what you're talking about in other areas. Essentially, explain reasonable suspicion, understand what that is, understand what the law says, what case law says. So this way, when you're challenged, you don't lose your emotional intelligence, you
Yeah.
have knowledge basis, and you can kind of play that intelligence volley back and forth with somebody who may or may not be involved in criminal activity. But one
Yeah.
thing that'll help you the most if you do make a mistake is your kindness to other people, because people really do understand the police are out with good intentions. So if you show you have good intention, and maybe they're merely, and I hate to say this, but collateral damage, quote unquote, of you trying to learn your craft, they would have a lot less motivation to make your life difficult if they
Yeah.
just understood that you were overall nice and just trying to do your job. That's a big variable. People don't realize that.
It blows my mind. So some of the smugglers that I arrest, I try to do a good interview with them following up after the arrest, post incident to arrest. And some of the things that I have on dash camera while we're sitting there waiting for a tow truck, and I'm just jaw jacking, what do you do for work? You have kids, and just personalizing myself, right? And one of the things I see regularly is, hey man, you know what, Officer Jackson, you're really nice. You're a really nice officer. You're really good at what you do, but you're really nice. I appreciate you treating me with respect, and I really appreciate that. And that goes a long way. And something else you just said a few minutes ago, as far as the interview, I had a guy I helped out earlier this week. He was like, "Hey man, I just took your online demand class, and I've been practicing, some stuff for the last couple of months, and so I had a couple people that I've talked to throughout my traffic stop the last few months, and one of the things he brought up was he's asking everyone he stops, is there anything illegal in your car? And he wanted to know kind of about nervous laughter. He was like, well, you talk about nervous laughter in your class, and everyone that I'm asking, I'm getting laughter that shouldn't be relevant to the interview. And one guy was on his way to church, and he gave me nervous laughter, and he told me I didn't have anything illegal in the vehicle. And I'm like, okay, well, throughout the entire interview, did you feel like there was real suspicion that that individual was involved in criminal activity at that time, in totality of the whole interview? He was like, no. I was like, well, why are you asking for consent to search the car, and if there's anything illegal in the vehicle? We save that for when we need to. And again, it's bad training, it's bad direction, and this young officer, he's out there, he's trying to do the right thing, but he has guidance where, officers like myself, Kenny, Brad, some of these guys, Jeremy Benefit, we're not nearby to assist him on a regular basis, but he's being told by other senior guys in his department or area, whatever it was, that, hey, every car you stop, you need to be consistent. You need to ask everybody this. You're going to get beat in court because you're not asking every car for criminal activity. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, man, like your bread and butter. You're going to shine in court when you go testify, and you get on stage, or excuse me, you get on the stand, and on the stand, you're saying, no, I don't ask everybody these questions. I only ask questions when people, raise my reasonable suspicion to believe that they're involved in criminal activity, they're about to, or were at some point involved in criminal activity. That is the only time I ask those individuals, questions about if there's any elements of a crime inside of the vehicle, if they're currently involved in criminal activity. We should not, as law enforcement, be asking every general motoring public that question. That type of behavior and that type of act, that's what's going to diminish our liking out there with the general public and make us look bad overall, and that's not our mission when we're out there.
You know what, dude? I say this over and time again, over and over, is that when I see these videos of these men and women making mistakes, I'd like to say, some of this stuff there's nothing you can do, but majority when there's criticism, it's because of mistakes. It's not because of true malice of going into the street and trying to violate the Constitution, or trying to use too much force, or trying to be a dick. It is a lack of training. Overall, it is a lack of training, and a lack of perspective, to be honest with you. When you talk about asking somebody for, a consent to search every single time, or even if there's anything illegal in the car, people have to understand that there is constitutional limitations in some states on what you can ask, how often you can ask it. Well, I don't say how often you can ask it, when you can ask
Yeah,
it,
when you can ask, yeah.
how you're supposed to ask it. There's a lot of things that people need to take into account before going out. And I also want to say that when you're new, we were all new. We just did things. We were taking guesses at things because there
Mhm.
was nobody around, 23 years ago that was teaching what to do. There was nobody in my agency who knew what police work essentially was, except probably a handful of detectives. No bullshit. And I'm not trying to sound like a dick. And they were good cops. Don't get me wrong. Like, they were good cops, great reactive cops, great SWAT guys, great this, great that. But like, people that went out and genuinely were able to uncover crime consistently, not just step in shit, not get dispatched to a call. There wasn't anybody to learn from at that time. And we had gone through a big transition at our agency at that time, where we had a lot of guys leaving, but who'd been on in the 70s, dude.
Yeah.
Right. So you talk about, we worked with guys that were Vietnam vets, a lot of them. There were a lot of guys that I worked with that were Vietnam vets. Everybody that I got hired with is retiring now. It's wild. This is a different time in the world for me.
Yeah.
So I'll let you comment on that, and then I want to go to my second point of
Yeah.
what you said before.
Yeah. So actually, it's funny you mentioned that. So me, Kenny, and Bedingfield, we were actually talking this weekend. We all talked about, just kind of our personal experiences when we first got into law enforcement, and then interdiction, right? Not all. And there's some great old school senior guys out there, badass, and it will go to the end of earth to help some of the younger officers. But some of the older officers, that are, legends in our field, whatever your field may be, doesn't even have to be interdiction specific. We talk about some of those that are kind of unwilling to fully help and commit to help some of the younger officers kind of coming behind them to kind of learn, like, the proper way of doing it. And, like, for example, one of my prior agencies, I had guys that were beasts at interdiction, but they wouldn't give me the time or day to fully teach me. They would show me a little bit of things and then just, all right, go try that for a while and see how that works, kind of deal. And like, that's not beneficial. Like, so I tell guys all the time, man, like if I have someone nearby, it's like, hey man, I just really can't afford whatever, dude, just come into class. Like, I love what I do so much. I'm so passionate about it. I had a call 2 o'clock last night. Like, I'll take calls any time of the day to help a guy out, or a girl out, on a roadside, on a search, whatever it may be. Bettingfield helped out like 2 people this week, with car searches online. So it's just one of those, we want to change. Like, law enforcement in itself is always ever evolving, ever changing. And, it's one of those things as an instructor, like, you have to be very passionate about what you teach, number one, because the students are going to see it right off the bat. They're going to know if you're just up there, doing PowerPoint to death and, just trying to get the material out so you can get out of there and get back on the road, versus somebody who's like, hey, you guys want an extra 30 minutes? I got a couple extra videos for you guys. You want you guys to see some compartments? I'll show you guys some compartments, whatever it is in a specific field that may be relevant to what you're teaching. And the instructor is very passionate about that. And that's something that I take deep to heart, when I'm out there teaching officers, or if I get a phone call and there's someone's asking for some help.
I want to be very clear. Nobody can call me at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I know that. Look, shoot you a text. You'll get it to me the next day, right?
We're a little bit of a time zone difference, but your boy here's
Yeah,
up at 2 o'clock. I don't even bother.
true.
I actually turn the phone off, like not off, but like I only allow like 2 people to actually penetrate the complete silence of my phone at night. I can't be disrupted, dude. You gotta understand something. I think for a living, and I know a lot of you do as well.
Yeah.
I would even argue that what you do is more important because you have to be fresh to be ready to battle for your life if need be. Me, I just have to solve problems, create better things to make things better. But if my brain is dull, it's a shot day for me. I mean, I might as well just sit in the driveway and spray a hose at my truck. I mean, that's about how effective I essentially am if I don't get enough sleep. So I really, really am very careful with my sleep. But that's besides the point.
Another thing I was going to say, you pointed out a good factor. I'm out there, making sure that I make it home every day. And another personal development thing I'm trying to get back into is jujitsu. So literally went out when we were texting earlier, signing up for jujitsu. So I'm getting back into it. Haven't done it for years. And again, looking to make sure that I have that extra itch to keep me alive out there on the streets and get back home every night.
It is flabbergasting to me that police officers aren't in jujitsu more.
Yeah.
And what I can say about this is I believe in order to resolve this issue right now, there's only one way to get these men and women trained, and that's their academy time and to introduce jujitsu in academy time. So, we're working on that, dude. We've got such crazy, amazing shit on the horizon. People are going to be fucking stoked. And I actually think I figured out a way to change the entire thing, which is basically like my envisioned dream of how to make this whole thing better for everybody. But back to what I was going to say before, you said this thing where people say this young police officer was told by his coworkers that he's going to get beat in court.
Right.
Let me just address that statement because this is one of those things that irk the shit out of me. Now, while you should be very weary of what's going to happen in court, the likelihood of you ending up in court when you know what you're doing is slim to none. Folks, the type of attorneys these people hire are not ones that you should really be super concerned about. Most people can't afford high level attorneys. And I'm not saying that but the point is the idea that you would be on trial is, if you're not a major crimes detective, more than a handful of times in your entire career, is so slim to none. Unless you're a DWI guy, you're a DUI guy, whatever you want to call it. Those guys are always on trial. That's a thing. You're testifying on intoxilizer and whatever else machines they use. That's different. I'm saying proactive police work. Trials are so expensive. What it costs to pay an attorney to put a trial on. You may have a cartel doing that to gather intelligence.
Mhm.
So they have to give discovery over all that stuff. They can cross-examine, see what the police strategies are. That's one thing. But the likelihood of you being on, so yes, while you should be always thinking about constitutional compliance, how will it look in court? You should not live in fear of doing your job because you don't know how it's going to look in court. And one way to quell that fear is more training, but I can't
Yep.
emphasize enough, and nobody's going to do it because if you did it, I wouldn't have a job in a company, but that's to read case law. I had a guy reach out to me yesterday and he's like, hey man, I have a dispute with my supervisor. He said this, I know it's not true. And I sent him a link to Google Scholar. And essentially, that was where I led him down. They bring you to the water horse. Now you have to drink. The answer to your question is in these 10 cases. So today, Uncle Den's going to teach you how to read case law. It is not rocket science. And so
No,
you
it's
start
not.
reading it, you can start picking up what you're reading about. It is not usually, I've given this tip before. Usually the first couple paragraphs and the last couple paragraphs are the most important things for you to read from a lay opinion on what they said. If you want to know why they said it, the other cases they're citing and how they came to the conclusion, that's going to be the meat and potatoes of the interior of this ruling. But typically you can find the answer in the top paragraph or the bottom paragraph. And that's enough fuel to bring back to administration or to your coworkers and say, hey, here, this is where this comes from. This is why
Yeah.
I am doing things the way that I'm doing them because I found this. And this is why I think that we should do it this way. And there's
Yeah.
nothing more exciting when simply one finds the way, but is able to help educate other people. And those other people have enough humility to say, thank you, this was great. I wish I would have known this sooner.
Yeah. And I work with a lot of great supervisors, and just agents in general. And it's not uncommon for an agent to call me, hey, I got a call a few months back. Hey, we're getting ready to work at the casino. We're going to run the dog through the casino and run some of the dogs on the doors in the exterior, on the out and exterior of the hallways of the hotel doors. And I'm like, I don't think you can do that, and then had to go in, pull up Eighth Circuit court law where they were located at the time. Send them the case law on that. I was like, yeah. So it's not uncommon for agents or people that I know to reach out to me because, like you said, you do not have to be a rocket science to do this. I was a grunt, got out of the military, became a cop. Most cops, we're not the most smartest people on the planet. Finally decided in 2013, went out, got my bachelor's degree. So got a college background, got a grunt background, and I'm a cop, right? But again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a lawyer or an attorney to go out here and read case law. Just like you said, that's exactly what I do. I sit down on a Saturday or Sunday, grab me, used to get me a beer, but now I grab me a bottle of water, kick back, read up some case law. The beginning, like you just said, it's going to be the what happened. The end is going to be how the courts decided. If you really want to figure out what they did, read the meat and potatoes in the middle. They're going to point out all the case laws and where they're referencing their opinions from. And in the end, they're going to give you the summary of the opinion. It's not that hard. And, Google Scholar, and we see it. I know you see it just like I do. And then I see it on a lot of other groups, interdiction groups primarily is what I'm in. And I look and guys are asking, hey, I work this state and I'm trying to figure out if I can run my dog during the course of the stop. Cool. Hop on Google Scholar, select your state, whatever it is, Virginia. Select all your circuit courts, select your district court for Virginia, search, and it gives you all the cases that you need to find your answer, But hey, like you just said, D, I don't mind. I'll take the time out of my day, either whether it's for a phone call or I see a pending message on the back ends of the group. I'll go in there, I'll do the research, copy, paste, put it in there. Hey, here you go, bro. It's not hard. You have to, if you're going to be a cop, right? And you're going to go out there and enforce laws, whatever you wanted to do in law enforcement, whether you're a traffic cop, to school resource officer, K-9, interdiction, whatever. Know what you're talking about. Take the time and the effort to go out there and look and read some case law specific for what your performance is required for your duties and your job, so you can go out there and you can be a better officer, because you can be the youngest officer in the department, but you can be the most educated. And I don't mean educated as far as like college, university, but I mean educated in the fashion of, hey, I read the case law. This is what the case law said. This is how the courts view it, and then understanding that, yes, this may be the U.S. Supreme Court case, but I'll just say for New Mexico, for this particular, podcast here in New Mexico, if I walk up to a car and it blows guys' mind when I tell them in class, if I walk up to a car and I'm wearing my state hat, not my federal hat, and I see a kilo, based on my training and experience, and I see a kilo of coke on the front passenger seat, and I get the driver out, there's no exigent circumstances, and the driver says, no, I do not have consent to search the car, I got to go apply for a state search warrant. Guys, that blows their mind. But you have to know your state specific laws and how your states are applying, additional, hurdles for you to get to the same goal, right? Because if I go write the search warrant for that particular example, I'm going to get the search warrant. It's just an extra hoop that I have to go through in order to get there. And that's because this state, in this particular example, those are some of the restraints they apply to the officers.
Yeah, it really doesn't do anybody any good to start adding those restrictions on, to be quite
Yeah,
honest with
it
you. It's
doesn't.
just another place to give criminals an opportunity to win. They say it's protecting people's rights, but
Yeah.
people's rights are protected at the federal level. And just
No.
so people understand what he's saying is the state of New Mexico departs from the federal automobile exception, which I would argue, or at least poke a guess, that 42 or 43 states also do not depart and completely follow the automobile exception
Yeah, I
seamlessly,
think
or
there's
maybe
seven.
some slight deviations.
Yeah, I think there's seven, maybe six, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe Oregon recanted that in 2022, maybe 2023. They used to be like that, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of those Northwest states, but I think there's about 6 or 7 states that do not have the automobile exception.
Yeah, I could tell you a few of them, um, but I don't want to miss. Oh, I like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania lost it,
Pennsylvania is
so
one,
PA.
yeah.
Yeah, so it sucks. When did you realize, as a police officer, when you were new, that you were proactive? Like, can you remember back to that moment when you just could not stop?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say my first probably about 6 months in, after I got off FTO and I'm on my own, I went out there and again, this was my mind frame when I first started law enforcement. I thought writing tickets was the way to win the war on criminal activity. So whatever it was, if I probably stopped my mom back then, I tell her that today, like I probably would have gave you a ticket, mom, like no doubt. But that's when I found my most proactive, right? Because I went from that mindset of stopping a lot of cars. Like, and I'll admit, this is one of my personal downfalls at the time. And I was new, and hey, I learned, and now we educate newer officers coming behind us. But I was going out there, I was taking my calls, but I was making an effort intentionally to make a lot of traffic stops so that I can find something moving. And I was kind of like getting the calls, and then the shift had to kind of pick up that slack. That's when I had to refocus. Like, all right, cool, team first, then go out and then do what I can do in between calls. And I changed that mindset. But very early on, to answer your question, I realized I was going to be a really proactive officer. And, there was a lot of senior officers that were around me, whether it was K9 or some type of street patrol units that we had in my previous units, that kind of grasped me and brung me in a little bit. Hey, you're doing great, but let's reel it back a little bit. Tickets is not going to get you the Toaster of the Year award. And we need to kind of home in your skills. You're making some good misdemeanor felony arrests. Let's get you to more felony arrests, get some more guns. Street level dope is what I was hitting my early career. So I'm very early on, and I started with a decently proactive agency. And from there, it just kind of went to where it's just now I am bread and butter mindset, interdiction, K9. That's kind of my goal. I want to run a dog till I retire. That's, narcotics is kind of where I'm at. I run a dual purpose dog. I don't do much patrol work as I probably could, but and again, my mission in my unit is drug unit specifically. So there's not a lot of room for patrol stuff in what I do currently.
What do you think is the common denominator with all proactive cops?
Common denominator with most proactive cops, I would definitely probably stretch that to be. That's a good question, D.
I have a good answer for it, but I'm letting you answer it first.
I'd probably say a good common denominator in a lot of proactive officers that we're going to have. It's a couple things. I can't even really narrow down to one. The proactiveness, the willingness to want to get up. Like I get up 3, 4 in the morning. I am motivated. I am pumped. I'm ready to go hit the road. I'll text my partner, Julian Armijo, like, bro, where are you at? What mile marker would you want to hit today? That's my go-getter. Like I'm a early bird. I'm up super early in the morning. So that willingness, that fire in me, that I didn't get anything yesterday. Today, I'm going out, I'm going to smash the world, and I'm going to try to find someone involved in major or mid-level high criminal activity that typically gets by the 99% of cops that are out there. Not because they're getting by because the cops are not doing their job, but the 99% of the cops that are just uneducated to what we are trained to look for as interdictors.
I would say that you're right. I would agree there are several ingredients But I think to somebody who is proactive, when I say proactive, I don't mean like the most successful man or woman.
Yeah,
I'm saying the motivated people who get to work and want to get after it, especially the newer people when they're just full of that fire in their belly. And I think it's people who generally enjoy working and staying busy. You're non-lazy people. I think that if you took these people and put them into any field, they would probably succeed, especially the ones who are more successful at going out and running and gunning. Those men and women, you could make them anything, and I would almost bet you that whatever you gave them to do, they'd be some of the best at it. You, Kenny,
yeah,
Brad, within the realm that you chose. Not all of us are the same, but I guarantee you, you would. And I know that because I work with you. We work together in this company. You are a hustler. You like to work. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about jumping on literally 30 hours ago and said we should do a podcast on Saturday. You were here. I'm the same way. I can't stop working. I love it. I enjoy it. It's my favorite thing to do. Would you agree that it's probably something that you would say everybody has a common denominator on?
definitely one of the factors for a proactive police officer. 100%. There's no doubt about it. Like you said, there's a lot of other elements and factors that goes into it, but I would definitely say two good factors.
One of the saddest things I see is when newer, younger police officers get out into the field. They are so bright. They're ready to take on the world. They are here. They are excited. And then that flame is extinguished quickly by surrounding
Yeah,
socio work environment. I won't even chalk it up to the world, the media, people giving them a hard time in the field. I'm saying inside the four walls of that agency, when
internal.
they put that damper right on somebody who's just so bright.
Yeah.
How do you feel about when that happens? It's so sad to me.
I hate it. And I'm not going to mention the agency name, one of my prior agencies. I like to use personal experiences, right? But I know a lot of officers can relate. Why? We've trained thousands of officers in classes over the years. And again, it's something that we see. But again, it's my previous experience was I worked for what I thought at the time was a proactive agency. It was one of my first couple of agencies that I worked for. And I was going out there and I was being proactive like I was in my prior agencies. And, I came to me and the sergeant was like, hey, they would intentionally stick me in the most quietest zones, if you will, to avoid me getting into pursuits or foot pursuits or whatever. And if I had to go to like a hotter area, they were like, "Hey, look, no traffic stops today," and I'm just like, so you're just going to take an element of my job? Like criminals move A to B. They're not always like going to be at a call for service. So, having to experience that, I hate it. And I just had a guy I talked to earlier this week. And he was like, hey, man, I work for an agency. We're a really small agency. It's the sheriff, it's me, and one other officer or one other deputy. And, like, he's like, I'm in a really, a good area, but they just want me to take calls and they just want me to shake hands and kiss babies. What do I do? And I told him, hey, look, dude, look, you have a couple options at your disposal. Have a sit down with your management, tell them, what your intentions are, tell them what you would like to do in your career and how you want to make a difference in your area. And if they don't want to do that, bro, it's okay. Sometimes you have to move on. I moved a couple agencies to get to where my last couple agencies have been extremely proactive, extremely great department and management. I love it, right? But I had to almost kind of fish where I go. And I had another individual earlier this month reach out and was like, hey, so I'm looking for an agency, I want to apply for K9, what should I ask during the interview? Well, I would probably give you, when they give you the floor to say, hey, is there anything you want to say to us or any questions you have for us? You need to be bluntly honest. Hey, I'm a proactive officer. I'm a go-getter. I take my calls, but in between my calls or when the shift is running slow, I want to go out there and I want to hammer down on traffic and I want to find criminals that are in transit. So I'm a traffic cop. I like to go out there, but again, I want to find cars that need to be searched or get into and whatever it may be, to however you get in there lawfully and then do what you need to do. But again, like that's something that some steps that you can take to get away from those departments or filter those departments if you're in that process for finding a proactive agency. Take that interview time that you get and pose those questions to them. That way, right then and there, your intentions are right up front. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you were to come onto the department and they put that cap on you and then you left, well, then it's no hard feelings, because I feel as an individual who's applying for an agency, and if I tell you my intentions, I tell you what I'm looking for in my career and how I want to evolve and I want to develop, I want to promote, whatever it may be, and then I get there and you cap me and I leave, don't be mad, right? And that's something that needs to be, I think a lot of management, I won't say a lot of management, I'll say a decent amount of management across the country are just trying to fill those seats, because there's a lot of agencies that are out there that are shorthanded. My agency, among others, we're shorthanded as well. But again, you find a good department, or you think you have a good department, you sitting back and asking some decent questions in that interview phase is drastically going to help you out in your selection process for finding a good agency.
You said they're not going to be mad. Just so you know, they're still going to be mad. There's no.
They're gonna be mad as hell. Yeah. They're gonna, when you put that 2 weeks notice in, yeah, they're gonna start putting you on night shift and throwing you like the worst zones just to kind of tick you off. And it's just like, I hate people like that. I won't even say management. I hate people like that. Can't stand them. And they know they're out.
Sometimes give guys and girls advice, like, if you know your agency is going to play this game with you, your best bet, honestly, is to depart from the profession so they cannot interfere with your next move. It sounds nuts, but like, you may want to drive an Uber for 2 months while you're trying to go through new processes. And I want to say that, like, for those men and women who want to enter in this profession, or those who are already in it and looking for a transfer, the leverage is yours now. The applicant has the upper hand because they are so short-staffed. It is not what it once was 25 years ago, where you were just lucky to get on somewhere. Let me also say this. I would argue, don't even begin to go through the interview phase. Before you do anything, do your homework. I'm not talking about talk to the training sergeant. How many people I see in their training or recruiting divisions that are so full of shit because they just got to go out and do this job and try to get numbers? They'll tell you what you want to hear, and you need to then go and do research independently. How do you do it? I don't know. You get creative, but I would at least want to talk to 5 different people from an agency, because you might hit the first one and they might say, this place is a piece of shit. This guy's a piece of shit. But the reality is, you might find guys that are like, yeah, well, that guy's disgruntled as shit. We have a really good job here. I remember, dude, it was when I got hired, there was 2 big groups that got hired together in the first year that we all had this mass hiring. And so there was 26 of us that got hired in a year. And probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 out of that 26 were already cops. And I remember how spoiled and how much of a bunch of complainers the first time around cops were. And we all came from like shit agencies, right? With no equipment. And like, we couldn't believe the cars turned on. We had computers. We just couldn't believe, like, the cars were clean. If they got crashed, they got fixed. I got to give the old agency some credit. These dudes fixed cars in 3 to 5 days, dude. You could wreck a car. It'd be back in the fleet in like 3 You come back from your 4-day off and you're like, how is car 5 back? And I'm like walking around a car all the time. Like, they fixed this thing already. They fixed it like this, dude. They fixed everything. So while we had a lot of imperfections, a lot of us were just like, we can't believe that we're this lucky. So my suggestion is, nowadays, before you even start the interview process, before you even pick up or click apply here or grab an application, do your homework. Don't just go somewhere. If you have friends that are telling you this place is great, that's probably pretty reliable, but they've got to work there and you got to ask those questions. Save yourself a lot of time. I wish, Nick, I've said this forever. I wish that everybody would just have that honest conversation of, hey, what do you want to do here? I want to go out. I want to catch criminals. Yeah, we don't do that here. We're looking for people to go to nursing homes and sing karaoke. Okay, well, then this isn't for me. Because that's the struggle, dude. You get these hard chargers, you put it in these positions, and they're frustrating the shit out of these administrations. Administrators listening should know that you should just be upfront. So this way you don't got to go through the process of like, how are we going to get rid of this guy or girl? How are we going to get an attorney? What's it going to cost us? What's the lawsuits going to look like? Save yourself the trouble. It's like when we hire somebody as a company and like, dude, right away we're getting red flags. I don't care how much I was into this person. We're done. Like, we're done. I've had those conversations. I literally told a guy recently, I'm like, dude, this is a huge red flag for me. And then he like got shitty with me. And he's like, okay,
Stop putting
bud,
bodies in cars.
what'd you say?
I was saying, stop putting bodies in cars. That's all they're trying to do, man. And I get it. The numbers are low, but like you said, if you're straight up and honest with these applicants when they apply, you won't have half the issues that you have the first couple of months that they're coming on board. And you're getting those red flags, as you call them. And, like you could avoid all that stuff, man, just being straight up in the interview. But chances are it's not going to happen in the interview.
No, and you know what? You're going to be so nervous. You're going to have the balls to ask questions like that. I suggest not asking those questions in your interview, because if you're looking to get hired, the last thing you want to do is start almost questioning them. There are a lot of egos in this game, and people, honestly, I was getting grilled yesterday or 2 days ago, or yesterday, 2 days ago. I had to sit down. An agency once put together a program, and I was getting grilled. And so the person who put it together is like, I'm kind of sorry that happened. And I'm like, I don't care. Like this, I'm doing this a long time. I don't care. My ego's not damaged. Somebody wants to question what I do and how I do it. I'm open, man. I'm an open book, open dialogue. If we're not a good fit, we're
Yeah,
not a good fit. That's all.
that's
I
it.
On this topic, I don't know if you saw the post in the group today, and I'm going to read it to people. So a guy approved a post, and this is what the
Okay.
guy wrote. I'm going to read my response, and we had so far right now. It's a couple 2 hours later, 254 likes on my response. So obviously it struck a chord with folks. So it said, I was recently told by my supervisor that I need to stop making petty stops. Example, seatbelt, registration, window tint, etc. Which is, you already know who you're dealing with as a supervisor, right? I was told by my fellow officers that it is illegal for a supervisor to tell me what I can and cannot enforce as far as traffic stops. Is this illegal? If so, is there any case law or something backing that this is an illegal action by a supervisor where I can find this in case law or information? Thanks in advance. Here's my response. Let me save you a ton of trouble. And I'm telling this story because I want to help anybody else in here. It doesn't matter what the law says. You're going to piss off your boss for whom you're employed under. So you have two options: leave and go to a different agency, or two, follow your boss's orders and conform. Well, I don't even have to guess what kind of cop he is. You need a job. Remember that it is a job and you have a boss. I think everyone should have immense pride and do this job with heartfelt good intention. But I've seen so many cops get canned for anything they can find on them for not following what the agency wanted. Transfer or shut up and conform. This is sent with love. Your Uncle Dennis.
I love the response, man. And just to tap onto that too. First off, as soon as you said no seat belts, brake lights and crap like that, I'm just like, yeah, that's the type of person. That's a supervisor who, one, doesn't want you to get into anything. They want you to go out, shake hands, kiss babies, take your calls, do your 8 or 12, whatever you're working, and go home. They don't want to review any reports after shift. They just want to come in and make that supervisor pay and go home. And I say to supervisors like that, get out of this profession. You shouldn't be in this profession doing stuff like that. And let these guys and the girls go out there and do the job. Our job as law enforcement is not to just be reactive. I get it if you work in a high metropolitan department and you sign on and there's 30, 40 calls pending. Got it. So if you're working some of those smaller remote areas, your officers should be able to go out there and be proactive to make an impact in your community, whether it's, seeing someone walking on, pedestrian and, commit jaywalking, cool, but they don't belong in the area and you get some suspicious activity, cool. Well, now you got a crime. If that's a crime in your area, jaywalking, not using the streets or the crosswalks, making contact, right? Compelling ID, and boom, Lord, you can have, someone with 3 felony warrants, continental, wide, hook and arrest, extradition. So, just being proactive in general, I think we as law enforcement, there's no reason any department out there should not allow officers to be proactive. And the agencies that are not allowing their officers to go out there and be proactive, I promise you, they probably have a high percentage of property theft or theft at a lot of their local, stores and retail stores. And that in turn is turning into officers having to be reactive, going to Target, Walmart, taking these reports, right? Because they're not allowing the officers to go out there and being proactive when they just saw that same individual 10 minutes ago walking down the street or the residential area and not being able to fit in that area. And they recognize that, not even being able to contact them because their department and their management doesn't want them to be proactive. That's a problem. That's a problem that we have in a lot of law enforcement agencies. And that's something that I get it. but we have to be proactive as law enforcement. We can't just sit back and take calls and not allow our officers to see something that they know based on their training and their training and experience isn't right, and not allow them to act on their training and experience to make that consensual contact, or if they have PC for whatever pedestrian or bicycle violation, to contact them and compel ID at that point. That's insane. It's insane for us not to want that in our communities, right?
Before, I think we talked about, or you might have made a statement that said, or you might have made a statement and said small remote areas. I think more appropriately said is it doesn't matter where you work, is when there's availability to be proactive.
Right.
So, I mean, I know people that work in rural areas and like, dude, we won't see a car all night.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of when you have the ability to go out, be energetic, and put some kind of pressure on people committing crimes and be proactive and let it be known that you guys are proactive. That's what I think is probably more appropriate, so everybody can understand that, like, you know what? Maybe there are times when you're the NYPD that you can get down and get busy. Do I think there are any right now? Probably few and far between.
Yeah.
I am told that there are. I don't even want to get into this publicly, but I know a lot of people everywhere. Some of these major metropolitan cities that are, essentially governed by very liberal policies, their agencies are down 30, 40%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you talk about, let's take, for example, the city of Chicago. Let me just see how many cops. We go on my phone here and see how many cops are in Chicago. So when we talk about being down 40%, Chicago police force
I'm gonna
size.
guess while you're looking it up, I'm gonna guess probably around 25,000 if I had to guess. So yeah,
12,000 officers.
I was way
So let's
off.
talk about what's 30% of 12,000? Roughly 4,500
45.
police officers, somewhere in that ballpark, 4,600. So you're talking about they're down. Maybe I'm wrong with my math. 12,000. I'm usually good at this. So like 4,000. Let's call it like 4,000. With 3,600. But when you really begin to understand what it's like to have lost 3,600 law enforcement officers, let's even call it 3,000 to give them the grace margin. 3,000 less cops. We're not talking about being down 3 guys at a 10-man agency or down 6 guys at a 20-man agency that doesn't have a lot of calls for service. The place is insane. The
Yeah.
place has been lost. When these groups of vagabonds come out of the woodworks and just flood in droves of hundreds into downtown Chicago and just pillage and rant and beat, it's like they're like Vikings, dude. It's wild. Like, it's just a wild place. I won't go there. There are places right now where I will not go. I will say there, I'll tell you right now, I will not go to New Orleans. No, sir. No way, no how. I got to fly to New Orleans in about 3 weeks. Um, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is about the closest I'll get to that city. I mean, it is wild at these places because they have nobody out there to work and
Yeah.
stop crime. Before we continue on, I think we should finish with this. Earlier, we talked about that second hardest thing of conducting a criminal motor vehicle stop is knowing if the tells and signs are there, typically
Yeah.
based on behavior, inconsistencies in stories, facts. It's called reasonable suspicion, facts that don't make sense. Once you really understand it a little bit, you really get to understand that it's not as difficult as you think it is to document and articulate these things. But with that being said, I also regarded that vehicle selection, albeit the hardest thing to learn, is the easiest thing to change. So maybe you can elaborate on this because I think you do a really nice job of
Yeah.
explaining what I just said there.
Yeah, and I actually just made a post recently about the I think I said 8 tips that a good interdiction officer should have, and one of the things was target selection. So when we talk about target selection, and listen, there's going to be guys watching this right now talking about, well, we should stop these cars, and there's always good crimes and a good arrest that we get out of these cars, right? But if I see 2004 Chrysler 300, I'm probably, in my training experience, I'm probably not going to, on the interstate, I'll use that for the example as well. I'm probably not going to look for that. I'm going to look for the more higher end car the BMW, the Mercedes, something of higher status, right? Because yes, if I stop that Chrysler 300, is there a high probability that I'm probably going to get something out of there? I get up there and see some of the stuff that I don't agree with teaching, Crown Royal bags, felony Air Force. Yes, all that stuff has a play and it does feed into the totality, right? But what I'm looking for specifically, mid-level, high-level individuals involved in criminal activity, that stuff is a very is on the low inch or the low spectrum end of what I'm looking for. So I want to focus more on not just the common, the low hanging fruit. I want to look for the stuff that's getting 99% of cops, right? I had a guy message me the other day. He's like, hey man, I've really been focusing on my driving behavior. Vehicle was approaching my location. It went from lane 1 to lane 2, reduced the speed about 11 miles under the speed limit. Driver was 9 and 2 when he went by, tucked in behind the B pillar. I was like, cool, what kind of car was it? It was a BMW X5 2013. Loving it already. Guy gets out, pulls him out. I believe the guy was 72 years old. First time ever being arrested for trafficking. Yeah, 72 years old, first arrest. And then I'll actually post that up right now today. He gave me permission. So that'll be one of my posts today. Again, talking about that, age, sex, and race, none of that crap plays a part. But this guy's, old as hell, never been stopped, never been arrested. And he gets stopped by an officer who's new to interdiction. I think he had 4 or 5 years on the job. And he came to one of my classes back in Indiana. And, this guy's just been killing it, and he's been kind of rolling back some of the things that he's been taught in other interdiction schools or officers within his own department, his 4 walls. And he's just kind of taking an open mind that, yes, what they taught me may be one aspect, but there's other aspects to look for. And I kind of sit back and I tell everyone, drive behavior is a good factor. I'm not one of those. I don't like running random plates. I have LPR on my car. Yes, the LPR is great. Why? Because it saves me from having to leave the median, chase a car down, type the plate in, see that I, look at the registration. I talk about registration returns and tradecraft within the registration. And then, if I don't like it or if nothing's there, then I'm going to turn back and go set up. That's what LPR is really good for. And those of us that have been working interdiction, a high percentage of us, that's what we really use it for. To say it's a gas saver. That's 100% what LPR does for the interstate interdictors or those that are working U.S. highways. But rolling back to kind of wrap that back in, the vehicle selection, it may seem difficult to most, but it's just turning off that switch to the low-hanging fruit cars that we normally are stopping and start dialing into some of the cars we wouldn't normally stop, right? And this is the way I pitch it. I have officers that tell me all the time, well, I'm getting a couple of ounces. I'm getting like 8 ounces or 9 ounces, or I'm getting 8 grams or 10 grams. And how do I take my career to the next level? Cool. What I want you to do is go back, look at your last 15 felony arrests, and I want you to go look at the make and model of the car you're stopping. Write all of those down. And then I want you to go out there and look at, your last 20, 30 stops and look at what all the cars you're stopping. Write those down. And you're going to find a common denominator that you're going after cars that just look good. They're low hanging fruit, and that's what you've imprinted into your mind. You imprinted that the Chrysler 300, on 22-inch rims, dark window tint, loud music. That's been imprinted. And I can tell you myself, Kenny, Jeremy, the cars we stop are plain Jane. Toyota Camry, Kia Sorento, BMW X5s, Durangos, the Dodge Journeys. Like, these are plain cars. There's nothing fancy about them. Some of them are more higher than others, but these are cars that they're not, putting attractive stuff on them, banging loud music, driving down the street. And listen, I get it. If you're working in a city or in a county, you are probably getting 2 or 3 guns, a couple of ounces, maybe even a pound or 2 out of those. Great, but how are those drugs getting into your communities, right? You have a mid-level supplier. Those mid-level suppliers, they bring drugs in the area. I promise you, your mid-level suppliers and your high-end suppliers, they're not driving cars that attract law enforcement attention of officers that are, I'll just say, 1 to 5 years on the job, that are making regularly felony arrests, right? They're driving cars that look like mom and pop, soccer mom. When's the last time you stopped a car with a family in it? Right? My last 2 big loads that I've hit this year have had families in them, and they're a whole family, a husband, a wife, 2 or 3 kids, and they have excess amounts of narcotics in the car. We're talking 80. My biggest one this year so far is like 200 pounds, right? It's a whole family. Cars that we wouldn't normally stop, you have to change your target selection, and you're going to get a different results.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And listening to it, understanding, and then applying it is the science. People will understand this, get it, but go out and ignore it because it's so much harder and it's so much more uncomfortable to do things that they're not comfortable doing. And so if you want to be good at anything in this world, you must get comfortable with being
Yes.
very uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. I love the saying. I even have the slide in my class and I talk about that. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get comfortable asking people, sir, ma'am, hey, I do all my traffic stops back at my car. I need you to exit the vehicle and come back to my car while I issue you a warning. That's again where it starts as well, with a lot of the roadside interviews. They don't want to ask people to get out of the car. I get those that have the policies. They don't want to have the officers come out of the car. Working in a two-man team, you can kind of negate that whole principle or that policy or ruling, whatever you may have. But you got to start doing stuff differently because you have your infantrymen and you have your special ops. We have the same goal of going after HVTs, high value targets. Special ops are out there doing badass shit. They're getting there and they're going through avenues unconventionally, when us as infantrymen, we're having to do the conventional warfare to get to where we're trying to go, right? Let's talk about the Marines who got, Saddam Hussein. But you had also special operators out there actively looking for him, right? But same goals, but different aspects of how to get there. So if you're trying to be an interdictor, it doesn't have to be a highway interdictor, but a high level, street patrol officer or interdictor, whatever you may title it in your area, you have to change your tactics. All right. And you have to change the principles of what you're doing. You have to change your mission. If you have the agencies that want you to go out there and write the tickets, this is what I tell you. If you have a sergeant that wants you to write 10 tickets, go out there and scratch your 10 tickets for the first half of the day and then go out and do real police work, right? Because there's more to it than just scratching tickets. And we got to get out of this mindset.
The only reason that mindset exists, well, I'll give a few reasons. I'll give you two right now. Number one, because that's what you're taught. I talk about this in class. I go, everybody had a guy that came in and showed you how to use a tuning fork, right? Everybody had that guy. But did anybody have a guy that came in and showed you how to catch bad guys? Number two, tickets are easy. They're productive. They're easy. There's some reward for the work. You can get some kind of reputation of being a hard worker, but it's so easy that anybody can do it. So if you want to get recognition, but you don't possess the skills to go out and get better things, and by the way, let me just be very clear. You do what you want. We're not here trying to fight with those who enjoy traffic divisions, traffic units. God bless, c'est la vie. I'm just trying to offer a different perspective to people who might be writing tickets knowing there's more out there. And the only reason you know how to write tickets is because, again, that's what you're taught police work is. And if we were all taught when to the academy, imagine academies from day one taught you nothing but how to stop crime. What kind of cops would we have in this world? And so, unfortunately, that is not the focus because there are not many talented people that know how to stop crime. And secondly, those talented cops are so into fighting crime that they're highly unlikely they're going to be academy instructors. Sometimes you get lucky enough, but it's unlikely. You couldn't get a guy like me or Nick to go work the academy unless I knew I was working on a special project to revamp the whole thing. Then I would submit to relinquishing my position as a proactive police officer to go and work on. It's like my partner. I remember we were killing it, dude, years ago, like 2013, 2012. But I was an FTO, and so a new cycle of rookies came out, and he's like, "Dude, you're going to be this kid's FTO for 12 weeks. What about me?" And I'm like, "I get it. I love my partner. We were on a roll. We're killing it. We're getting going. We're having a great time, dude. We were like the known car, right?" And because we were at two-man units, and I'm like, "But dude, I can't. We have all this knowledge to give to these kids. Like, how selfish is it of us to sit here and just do our own thing and let them just kind of maybe ride our coattails when I can get this kid in the car and make another great cop on this team in 12 weeks? He's gonna be one of us." And dude, it's crazy. One of my most proud moments. This kid was easy to field train, but I remember about 6 months later, a sergeant called me and he said, "Hey, what did you teach this kid?" I might have said this before in the podcast. And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, he's what, 9 months on the job because he had to go the other side of the week because he didn't have seniority. So he got pushed to a whole nother shift when he was doing his field training." And so I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "He just came in here and essentially taught the command staff on this side of the week how to write search warrants." So go figure. Imagine that. The kid's how old? He's 21 years old, and he's teaching 12 supervisors how to write search warrants. He goes, "How does he know how to do this?" I go, "Danny, he wrote 3 in his field training. You
Yeah.
know, you guys haven't written one in 25 years. He wrote 3 in field training. He's been down to the courthouse 3 times. He knows the process. He knows what an affidavit looks like. He had his qualifications. We were doing them on day 1. He understands what the threshold is. He knows what judges he has to see. He knows how to contact an assistant prosecutor. All these things this kid has learned. And who else do you got? Well, I sometimes when those kids would get cycled out of that and they go into a rotation, I would get a kid, and I don't want to say kid because I respect, honestly, God, dude, I respected the people that were cops. You came out of the academy, you showed up, it was your first day on the road, brother. Everybody had me with their arm around them with no, as much guidance as possible, no frustration. Even those who are having a difficult time, I would defend them. Like, guys, so fucking what? He or she's having a difficult time. This is not an opportunity for us to be little fucking pussies behind the scene and talking shit. You got 10 years on, I got 14 on, they got 8 on. We should be showing these people and making them succeed, not telling other people how much they suck. Because I got to tell you, I'm one of those guys, dude. When I start something, I'm just like, what? And then in like 9 months, 3 years, they're like, he's the best at that. Well, that's
Yeah.
because I have a different learning curve than everybody else. And maybe they have that too. So
Yeah.
it's not our job to start criticizing these fucking new people. Like, who the fuck do you think you are as a human being to ever not try to help somebody that's trying to do their best?
Yeah.
Have I seen people that they were hopeless? Yes, but few and far between. And even those people, we need to give them everything we can before we give up on them. And that's the fucking problem, dude.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I mean, I get new officers in my agency all the time, and obviously they know who I am just because of the blotters and stuff that come out. But I don't know a lot of our newer officers. And hey, can I come out and ride with you? Yeah, sure, no problem, right? And I'll let them do a few stops and just see how they're doing and where I need to even help give self improvement, and I'll give my 2 cents, right? And I have some officers that come up and I go up to them and I'll try to help them, and they're like, hey, interdiction is not what I want to do. Cool, I got it. If there's anything else I can ever help you with, any questions I can help you answer, anything I can help you write. If you need any go-bys, no problem. Here's my number. You got it. Call me. I'll still help you. If you need a dog on a traffic stop, you get denied. Cool. Let me know. I'm there. So I give that out to all my newer officers, and I try to help everyone, even officers from other departments in my area. So 100%.
Well, dude, as I expected, fantastic podcast today. Super happy with this one. I hope all of you found a lot of value. We will continue to put these out. Nick will always be a guest here, and I have to be honest. Nick is a true brother, and I want people to know that what he says is who he is. And birds of a feather flock together. And I got to say that there are some people that are not part of the Street Cop Association anymore, and for those people who had no choice but had to depart for whatever reasons, the same goes for them. Still very, very good friends, very close friends with these people. And I couldn't be more thankful for having all of them in my life. Not all of them, but a far majority of them. So I just want everybody to know that. And I don't want to misspeak or say anything, and miss a name. But just so you know, I'm very proud and very thankful for everybody who's, you know, really been showing their true character of and on the other side as well, who showed the true character because now I know. But the reality is I'm super thankful, dude, for you, and I appreciate you, and we're gonna do great things for the world. And here's a little teaser for everybody. I actually really believe I figured out a way to train everybody, like everybody in this country and probably and globally as well. I'm not even kidding you. I think I figured it out,
It's gonna be great.
and it's announcements coming soon.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Looking forward to it, D.
All right, brother. I'll see you.
All right, see you, brother. Be safe.